A foreword. I haven't been feeling well. I suppose I never have. And it's not just the flu. I'm pretty much over. I'm just well. I don't know what I am. I have written more stories than I will ever post here. A lot of them, I don't know, they feel not good enough. Kind of like what you would put in an autobiography. You know, garbage. I don't know. I don't know what I am, honestly. But I'm not myself. I'm elsewhere lately. I told myself it was just a tattoo. That was the lie I repeated while the needle sang against my skin, while black ink seeped into me like a slow, deliberate infection. The artist said the design was old, found it in a sketchbook someone left behind. He shrugged, but I liked that. I wanted something with history, something that felt heavier than decoration. It sprawled across my ribs just beneath the heart, a sigil of spirals and broken geometry, elegant and wrong in a way that made my pulse stutter when I looked at it too long. When it was finished, the artist wouldn't meet my eyes. Sometimes, he muttered, wiping his hands. Ink remembers things. I laughed. I always do. The pain lingered longer than it should have. Weeks passed, and still the skin felt warm, as though the tattoo were feverish. At night, I could feel it move, not shifting exactly, but tightening, as if the lines were pulling inward, rearranging themselves beneath the flesh. Sleep became unreliable. Dreams slipped into me uninvited, thick and oppressive like humid air in a sealed room. I dreamed of vast black oceans without waves, of stars sinking instead of rising. I dreamed of something vast pressing its attention against me, not curiosity, not malice, but recognition. Like realizing you've been wearing someone else's name, I began to notice changes. Reflections lingered a fraction too long. My shadow bent where it shouldn't. Sometimes when I traced the tattoo with my fingers, I could swear it responded, subtle pressure like a pulse answering my touch. I stopped going out. People felt thin, temporary. Their voices sounded distant, muffled, as though spoken through layers of water. Music helped, a little slow, heavy bass lines that felt like funeral hymns for a dying universe, but even that began to warp, notes stretching into tones that didn't belong to any scale I knew. One night, I woke to the sound of my own breath echoing wrong. The room was dark, yet I could see, not with my eyes, but through the tattoo. A vastness unfolded behind my ribs, deeper than bone, deeper than self. The sigil burned cold, and suddenly I understood. The tattoo was not art. It was a key. I saw then what lay beyond the geometry etched into my skin, a place without edges, where time folded inward like rotting paper. Something ancient drifted there, too large to comprehend, its awareness brushing against countless worlds like fingertips trailing through water. It had never been summoned. It had been remembered, and I, Zerpina Maximoff, was the memory it chose to wake inside. The mistake was believing the universe would react. When the tattoo finished unfolding, there were no earthquakes, no screaming skies, no warnings written in fire. Reality did not resist. It simply adjusted, the way flesh yields to a blade once the cut is deep enough. Zerpina Maximoff ceased to be a person at 3:17 a.m. There was no witness. At that moment, the sigil beneath her skin completed its final rotation, a geometry so vast it could not be contained by 3 dimensions. Her body did not rupture. It lost relevance. Organs became ceremonial, bones became suggestions. Her nervous system flattened into a conduction lattice for something that had never evolved because evolution was too small a word for it. The thing within her did not awaken. It had always been awake. What changed was orientation. Through Zerpina, the entity achieved parallax, the ability to observe the universe from inside itself. Earth was no longer a location, it was a measurement error. A warm, noisy fluctuation in an otherwise elegant void. The first casualties were not people, they were constants. The speed of light stuttered, gravity developed preferences. Time, once linear, began to fray, looping in localized knots where cause and effect argued themselves into silence. Astronomers noticed stars arriving early, late, or not at all. Equations stopped balancing, not because they were wrong, but because they were obsolete. The sky grew unfamiliar. Constellations rearranged themselves into configurations that induced vertigo when studied too long. Telescopes captured images of structures too large to be celestial, vast filamented shapes spanning light years, folding in on themselves like thoughts too complex to complete. These were not invaders, they were corrections. Zerpina's form became a fixed point of reference, a wound in space-time through which the universe began to remember something it had been trying to forget. Oceans rose, not from heat but from displacement, as the planet subtly lost mass to accommodate unseen curvature. Tectonic plates drifted out of alignment, obeying forces that had no name. Humanity responded, as it always does, with noise, prayers, weapons, signals hurled into space like flares fired by a drowning species. None of it mattered. The entity did not perceive individuals, it perceived patterns, and humanity was an inefficient one. Then came the sound, not audible, ontological, a pressure that existed in meaning rather than air. People collapsed, clutching their heads as their internal narratives unraveled. Language failed first, then memory, then identity. Entire cities went silent as minds flattened into static, unable to sustain the illusion of self beneath the weight of something infinite pressing inward. The sun dimmed, not extinguished, recontextualized. Its fusion slowed as physical law renegotiated its relevance. Shadows lengthened permanently. The world cooled, not from absence of heat, but from absence of purpose. Zerpina, what had once been Zerpina, expanded. Her presence no longer required proximity. She existed simultaneously at every point where reality weakened. Deep space, subatomic intervals, the pause between seconds. The tattoo had become a universal glyph, etched into the fabric of existence itself. This was not destruction. This was conversion. Planets folded into higher dimensional structures, their matter redistributed into vast, silent architectures of dark geometry. Stars were unmade and reused as anchors for impossible frameworks spanning the void. The universe simplified itself, shedding excess complexity like a snake discarding skin. Life was not erased, it was outgrown. In the final moments, if moments can be said to exist, Earth hung in a sky that no longer acknowledged it. The oceans lifted into the air as elegant arcs before dissolving into probability. Mountains softened, their atoms reassigned to purposes too abstract to name. There were no survivors, there were no witnesses. There was only the quiet satisfaction of a cosmos returned to a state of correctness, and somewhere beyond time, the thing that had once worn the name Zerpina Maximoff completed its function. The universe exhaled. It would never need to breathe again. I tried to scream. My voice collapsed into silence, the sigil tightened, and for a moment I felt the terrifying intimacy of being known. Every regret, every hollow longing, every late-night wish to disappear catalogued and cherished like a lover's flaws. You wear the mark because you were always empty enough. The presence whispered without sound. The worst part wasn't fear, it was comfort. Since that night the tattoo has stopped hurting. It rests against me like a satisfied creature, warm and patient. The dreams have softened, becoming almost tender. I feel less alone now, even as the stars feel closer, too close. Sometimes, when I catch my reflection just right, I see the lines of the tattoo faintly glowing beneath my skin, rearranging themselves into shapes that no longer pretend to be decorative. I don't know what will happen when it finishes rewriting itself, but I know this. I am not marked because I was chosen. I was chosen because I was already listening. And somewhere beyond the veil of flesh and thought, something vast is learning how to wear my name.